What's going on with it, guys? UCF Jaguar back here with another Jaguars video for you guys. And this one is an exciting video that I will be getting into. Now, obviously, the Jaguars had a mega offseason, a huge offseason when it comes to just the different talent that the Jaguars acquired. I mean, obviously, in free agency, you went out there and broke an NFL record for the amount of guaranteed money that you gave out. We'll see if it works out, but one thing the Jaguars did was they added a lot better players to the roster in free agency. And obviously in the draft, when you have the number one overall pick in each round, I guess outside the second round, I mean, the Jaguars traded up. You had 2 first-round picks, the number one overall pick in a draft. The Jaguars they turned over the roster a lot, and they got better in a lot of different areas. That generally happens when you have a rebuilding team like the Jaguars that are hopefully on the come-up. But there is one acquisition that we've kind of pushed aside a little bit because a lot of Jaguar fans, I mean, everyone's talking about, oh, Christian Kirk, look at all that money that they gave him. A lot of people are talking about, obviously, even Zay Jones out there. Why did they give him all that money? And Travon Walker has really taken up, I guess, a lot of the talk these last 2 weeks. But I think really the most underrated acquisition for the Jaguars this offseason was tight end Evan Engram. Tight end Evan Engram was a kind of a low-risk type of situation. It's a one-year prove-it deal, a one-year $9 million deal. And these kind of deals are given to players that have like enormous potential, but are gambling on themselves to really be able to turn up a really good year so they can go out there and demand more money on their next contract. Now, when you look at the way that the Jaguars are set up right now when it comes to veteran tight ends, I mean, they have Luke Farrell in here, who was a 6th-round pick in a previous draft, and they have a couple of undrafted free agents. But the guys that the Jaguars are paying money to include Evan Engram, Dan Arnold, and Chris Manhertz. And none of these guys are under contract through 2023. So you'd imagine that at least one of these guys is going to come back next year. Hopefully 2. I mean, hopefully a couple of them do good enough to come back, but realistically, probably at least one of them will come back. So it's a true competition to really see what kind of cream rises to the top in that category. Now, Press Taylor kind of recently spoke about Evan Engram and just kind of talking about how he's a matchup nightmare, too big for nickel quarterbacks to cover, but also too fast for a linebacker. And he's also really smart at reading defenses as well as picking where he runs on different option routes. Now, a little bit about him. He was a first-round pick in a 2017 NFL draft, number 23 overall by the New York Giants, and over his 5-year NFL career, he accumulated 2,828 yards as well as 16 touchdowns. Now, unfortunately for Evan Engram, he is coming off of his worst season as an NFL pro. In 2021, he played in 15 games. This is actually pretty good for him. However, he only came out with 408 yards and 3 touchdowns. His worst year when it comes to being an NFL pro. Some things that kind of went wrong for him in his NFL career. The main thing was his drops. I mean, he does have a good sense of drops. So he's much like the Jaguars from last year. I mean, they're going to have to work on the jug machine. That a lot of that stuff is just working on your personal self. But I mean, drops can be fixed. It's just all about will they put in that time to fix it. We'll see. Another thing is the fact that he has missed 16 games over the course of his 5-year NFL career. I mean, he's never missed a large portion of a season, but there's always this nicks and bumps along the way where he has to miss certain games, which is obviously unfortunate. And another thing that probably went wrong for him in New York was, look, we can kind of compare this case to Taven Bryan. Taven Bryan right now, he signed a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns. And right now, Browns fans aren't even thinking about him. Browns fans, if Taven Bryan turns out to suck, he's not going to get another contract, and Browns fans are going to forget all about him. Jaguars invested a first-round pick in Taven Bryan. And, we knew all throughout his 4-year career with the Jaguars, this was a first-round pick. This was a first-round pick. And he just kind of haunted us. So that stigma never ran away from him, and that's the thing. The stigma of being a first-round pick or just a player that's overdrafted. I mean, even Bryan Anger was overdrafted where, he would not be able to do well. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Evan Engram. I mean, very high expectations on him, and he just never reached those expectations in like Giants fans' eyes. So it was pretty tough. I do think one thing that affected him was just the New York Giants effect. I mean, much like the Jaguars, we feel bad for some of our players because it's like, look, we are holding these players back from being great just with our different situations that we've had. But, and it's kind of similar maybe with an Evan Engram. I mean, since being drafted in 2017 to the Giants, I mean, they've had Ben McAdoo, they've had like Joe Judge, they've had the tail end of Eli Manning's career where he really wasn't very good, onto like Daniel Jones, and just all of this function that has been going on with the New York Giants. It's just been there, and you know, he was good enough to get this 5th-year option picked up, but yeah, he's just. It's just been a bad situation in New York, and I'm sure New York Giants fans can probably agree with me on that one. But yeah, Jaguars last year, 750 yards and 5 touchdowns from tight ends in 2021. So that number obviously has to get better. Now, what kind of role will Evan Engram play on the Jaguars? Really, his thing is that he is going to be used in the passing game. I mean, I don't see him doing much blocking at all. He is essentially a big, large receiver that is going to be a mismatch issue. That's a kind of a hard thing to say. Mismatch issue. Okay. Quarterback and another thing like that, like Doug Peterson stated, was that, look, quarterbacks need good tight ends. Tight ends become a quarterback's best friend. They become that security blanket, much like a running back, becomes a quarterback's best friend. It's a lot like a tight end, and especially in Doug Peterson's system, he does a lot of 12 personnel where it's essentially 1 running back and 2 tight ends. Doug Peterson runs kind of a West Coast system where really the offense is set up through a lot of like short horizontal passing, which is kind of what they use to stretch the defense out, and that eventually kind of leads to hopefully some big runs and some big downfield passes is what kind of the West Coast offense really like opens it up for. So. And a big thing about Evan Engram is, we talk about, man, we need wide receiver 1. We need like a big guy. But a lot of people aren't thinking about the fact that, look, they added a 6'3" guy in Evan Engram that's really athletic, he's really good route runner. His thing is just work on catching a ball, man. Don't have like all those drops. And that's the thing that he really like needs to work on, because even when the Jaguars had Blake Bortles, look, if you had the ball, 1st and goal at the 3-yard line and you run it a couple of times and get stuffed. Obviously, what you need to do, you need to try to pass the ball, back shoulder fade, whatever. When Blake Bortles was here, he could just throw it up to Al Robinson and trust that he would come down with it. On the 2021 team, who did Trevor Lawrence had that he could just drop back and throw the ball to? He had nobody. I mean, there was nobody where we say, okay, we need to get it to that guy. There was nobody. And the Jaguars last year, I have this written down. The Jaguars had, I don't have this written down. Okay, but I definitely, sorry. But the Jaguars, they had 12 passing touchdowns last year. 12 passing touchdowns. That was 32nd in the NFL. Terrible. The next best team was Carolina Panthers with 14. The Jaguars need to find ways to get throwing touchdowns, and obviously that comes with better play from the quarterback, but it also comes with just better guys to throw to. You need to trust that, okay, look at this mismatch we have right here. We have a 5'9" nickel cornerback covering Evan Engram. We're throwing to that guy, or whatever the situation may be. It's just the Jaguars, I mean, they need it. I mean, they needed that big target, and I think Evan Engram can really help like do that for us. It's a low risk, potential high reward situation. I mean, you didn't give him a multi-year deal with all this money. It's he's completely out the books in 2023. Hopefully, he does well enough to, be able to come back and like get another contract from the Jaguars. I know Doug Peterson. A big reason why he came here was because of Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson and the way he runs his offense is very attractive to tight ends. And let's be real, the Jaguars, it feels like tight end is almost like a cursed position for us. Like, we've had good players. I mean, Mercedes Lewis was a good tight end, you know, even going all the way back to Kyle Brady. But I mean, how many tight ends have we brought in here, and you know, we have hopes for them and they just turn out to be nothing? You know, that's kind of the issue with the Jaguars. So really crossing my fingers that this one works out, because it'd be huge for us. It'd be huge for us. And you know, we all talk about how the Jaguars did nothing for Trevor Lawrence in the draft. Well, they did plenty for him in free agency. So let's see if guys like Zay Jones, you know, Christian Kirk, and Evan Engram can have the big impacts that we all really hope them to have. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please be sure to drop a like for me. Really appreciate it. Leave your comments down below about if I'm crazy, or even let me know. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know who the most underrated offseason acquisition was for the Jaguars, whether it be free agency or the draft. Let me know. I always love hearing from you guys. And with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Go Jags. You guys watched the whole video. Really appreciate that. You guys can subscribe to the channel for the best source of Jaguars news on the YouTube platform. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar. And you can become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month for exclusive channel content. Thank you guys, and go Jags.